Hi there, this is Paul Atkinson. This is my second video on how to analyze IAPT statistics. And in particular in this video, I want to just dig a bit deeper into the annual reports and show you how we can gather quite a lot of information in your area. Since I did the first video, which is some time ago now, and I promised a second video quite shortly, but I think it's at least 6 months. Anyway, since the first video, IAPT actually changed its name to NHS Talking Therapies. So I'm probably going to mix the two titles up, but that's the current title of the service. Last time we took a kind of general look at the annual reports, which are massive databases. And we looked at the annual report for the year 2019 to 2020. There's now a report out for 2021 to 2. That's the latest report. And in this video, I'm going to use that. The format is the same as the earlier report, but it's more up to date. So I've put the link for the annual report in the blurb below the video. So just click on that. Okay, so this is the front page of the 2021-22 report, and as with the last video, if you scroll down the front of the report, you get the headlines for the year. We want to go down to the annual interactive dashboard for the year. Here it is. And there are 36 pages in this annual report, most of them extremely dense. We are only going to look at a few of them. That's all we need to look at to get the basic figures that we are interested in. The best way to navigate the report is to use the navigation buttons down here, these arrows at the bottom of the page. And the first information that we want to look at is page 5, key activity. And this is what it looks like. You can see across the top, it gives you the categories of information that this page is going to provide. That is the total number of referrals to a service, in this case, the whole of England. This is the number of referrals that actually entered a course of treatment. The difference between these two numbers are the number of people who dropped out without starting any treatment at all. And then the third figure is going to be referrals that finished treatment. Basically, a third of the people who were initially referred actually finished a course of treatment. Now, the way we navigate around England by region is using these two boxes here on the left-hand side. The first one is asking you to select the type of organisation you want to look at. I think the only two that really concern us are the CCG, and that's the new CCGs, the commissioning groups, the clinical commissioning groups for the new ICS areas, sometimes called the ICB areas, Integrated Care System or Integrated Care Board. And then here, the provider, that's a more detailed breakdown of the different providers in the areas in the CCGs. Often they are NHS providers, foundation trusts, mental health trusts, but there are plenty of other providers, either in the private sector or in the charity sector. Organizations like Mind do an awful lot of IAPT work, but there's a whole mix of providers. So, you know, in your area, if you want to break it down a bit, you can have a look at providers. We're going to have a look at CCG to start with. Okay, so having chosen CCG, we now need to choose the CCG that we want to look at. And again, I'll go back to my area, my hamlets is in Northeast London. Here we are. So I'm going to choose the Northeast London ICB. The figures are here in this bar graph here. Total number of referrals in the dark blue column. Number of referrals who entered treatment in the light blue, and in this kind of lilac color, these are the number of people who actually finished a course of treatment. As you can see, as you hover the cursor over each of these columns, you will get the box giving you the numbers of referrals. 71,000 total referrals in 2021-22, and 48,800 entered treatment, and 25,275 completed a course of treatment. If we go to another area, say Manchester CCG, 4,600 plus total referrals. So over 21,000 entered treatment, and 7,500 plus finished a course of treatment. You'll notice that this is actually very low. If you look at England up here, it's about a third of the total referrals who finish a course of treatment. Here in Manchester, there's 7,500 finished treatment. 44,000. That's about a sixth of the people who actually referred themselves or were referred to the service in this year. About a sixth actually finished a course of treatment. That means something like a 12th of those total referrals are going to end up in recovery, in what IAPT wants to call recovery. Anyway, so there's two CCGs. If we look at providers, you can see here this list of providers. The Alliance Psychology Services Limited, obviously a private company. Here's an NHS provider. Barnet, that too is a NHS provider, I think. Beacon is private. Lots of NHS trusts. Some very small organisations, often specialist mental health organisations, like I guess Blake and All Village Centre is. Centre for Psychology, I think, is a private service. A lot of Mind Services, City and Hackney, and so on. So here on this page is where we can get together a whole load of statistics. I'm going back to CCGs now, and we can begin to compare different areas. I've done some work on this kind of basic picture and drawn up some tables of statistics, which are quite tedious but quite interesting results. So, for example, here's a table of all the CCGs in England running down here. I put the London ones in blue because I'm working on London at the moment. And in the first three columns here are the numbers transferred from the
tables that I was just showing you from page 5 of the report. So in Northeast London, actually here, when I was doing this, it was called East London Partnership, but this is Northeast London CCG. These are the figures of referrals received, total referrals, referrals who entered, referrals who finished treatment. So having got our 3 columns here on the left, we can begin to do some calculations of our own. So, for example, we can work out what percentage of total referrals actually entered treatment here. Just put a formula in that we can copy into other boxes. If you're up for doing that, makes it very simple. So 68% of total referrals actually entered treatment. That's about 2/3. A third dropped out completely without any further contact. And what percentage of referrals that entered treatment actually finished a course of treatment? So that's here, it's 52% for Northeast London. So half of people who entered treatment actually finished, and then we could do a calculation about what percentage of the total referrals actually finished. And you can see it's about 1/3. So 1/3 of this total figure end up finishing a course of treatment. And with these percentages here, we can do some rough comparisons. Bath and Northeast Somerset, Swindon and Wiltshire, this is a really weird one-off anomalous result. I'm not sure what's happening here, but more people finished treatment than were actually referred. So the more normal figures are near 50%, as you can see here. Here's Derbyshire at more or less 70% of people who entered treatment actually finished a course of treatment. That's pretty good. Again, 69% for Frimley. And 7% for Leicester. This is on the lower end of things. So we're beginning to get some interesting comparison by putting everything on a chart like this. Okay, so let's move on now from looking at access to have a look at outcomes. To do this, we're going to go back to the annual report that we were looking at not so long ago. We were looking at page 5. Let me share the screen again. We'll go back to the front page of the annual report for 2021 to 22 and the interactive dashboard. And this time we're going to go to page 13. Here we are, outcome status, counts. We get a repeat of the number of people who've finished a course of treatment. We've got that already from the page 5 tables. We're given the number of people who recover and reliably recover, and people who reliably improve, no reliable change, reliable deterioration. Okay, so for this section of the video, we're just going to have a look at the number of people who reliably recover. We're going to put that on our spreadsheet. At the top of the page here, we've got the results for England, the reliable recovery number, 296,000. Okay, so we've got the same 2 boxes on the left. We can choose the type of organization, and we're going to again start with CCGs. These are the 42 CCGs in England. And I'll start again with Northeast London. So in the small table below, you can see that 25,275 people finished a course of treatment in that year, and of them 12,235 reliably recovered. So staying with CCGs, let's have a look at one or two others. I like the Manchester figures. I think it's Greater Manchester. Let's look under G. And we can see that 7,565 finished a course of treatment and 2,995 reliably recovered. Okay. So if we go back then to our master table, as it were, here we are. Have a look at the right-hand columns. You can see that I've transferred the number of people who reliably recovered into this column here. If I go down to Northeast London, called East London Partnership on this sheet, you can see here's the number who reliably recovered. And from there, we can do our own calculation of what percentage of people who finished a course of treatment reliably recovered. For Northeast London, it's 51%. And we can also do a calculation about the number of people who reliably recovered as a proportion of the total referrals that came Northeast London's way that year. That's the column on the left here. And that's a really interesting figure, I think, because although a third of these people drop out and never do a single session with IAPT, nevertheless, they have got in touch with IAPT one way or another through a GP, mainly self-referred. They are saying, presumably, that something's going on that they need help with emotionally, as far as their mental health is concerned, and yet they never start any kind of treatment with IAPT. They sort of disappear. IAPT doesn't really know what happens to them, and it doesn't follow them up. It doesn't follow up very many of them. Anyway, I've done freedom of information requests to most of the London IAPT services, and they do say that, some of them say that if someone's referred by a GP, they will get back to a GP to say that they haven't turned up. Some of them don't do that. And the ones who self-refer, I'm not sure that anything much happens. So I think this is an interesting figure. It gives us some idea of the waste and the inefficiency of the IAPT service. They have some kind of contact with these people, but only 17% of them in Northeast London actually finish a course of treatment and achieve some kind of reliable recovery. And you can see the range here is enormous. I think Manchester, if I could find Manchester, Greater Manchester, yeah, Greater Manchester, less than 10% of their total referrals actually achieve reliable recovery. Hampshire and the Isle of Wight below here, that's 2.5 times this number. So it's really interesting in terms of the way different services work and their effectiveness in giving access to people. Really worth exploring if you were looking at your local service and wanted to think about how it works compared to other services. This is where we've got to as far as this video is concerned. We've had a look at access, we've had a look at outcomes, particularly reliable recovery, and with a chart like this, and you can open it out into the, the individual providers in different areas. We have some kind of picture of how localities are doing compared with each other and compared with the average picture for England, and we can begin to get a sense of how our local IAPT services, NHS, talking therapy services are doing. Okay, so I'm going to end here. Bye for now.